Hey everyone, this is Ms. Burkham, and in this video we're going to be talking about the vocabulary words that we use when talking about an input or output table. So tables with patterns. So the very first one that we are going to be going over is the word input. Okay, so with input is the position in a sequence. So that could be something like when we talk about sequential order or something being in a sequence, it's in a specific order or a specific line almost. So for example, within this right here, this line would be first, second, third, fourth, and so on. So it belongs in a specific order. Okay, and an example of this, of our input. So a lot of the times when we see it, we're going to see it in a chart. Okay, and our chart is going to be input, the rule, and sometimes the rule isn't necessarily in the chart like this. Sometimes it's just input and output. But for this, I want to make sure to put in the rule so that you can see the different sections. So we have input, rule, and output. Okay. And so, for example, in this, say our rule was times 4. What that means is you, to your input, are going to apply this rule and it will give you your output. So, for example, if our input was 1, our output, after we apply this rule right here, would be 4. Okay, and then our input, like it says over here, it can go usually in a sequence, in sequential order. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. The rule stays the same for each one. And then the output is what changes once you apply the rule. So for example, right here, we did 1 times 4, that was 4. Well, here we would be doing 2 times 4. Okay, and we know 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. And 5 times 4 is 20. Make sure you have this on your foldable as well. Another thing that's really interesting is you can also, within your input, which we agreed was this section here, you don't necessarily have to go in order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, all the way to whatever number you're trying to reach. You could also skip some. And I, for example, if I wanted to, could go to 10. And then I, again, would just apply the rule. And 10 times 4 is 40. So that's the big idea of what an input is. Input is the starting spot. Okay, it's the position in the sequence. It's the part where it begins before the rule is applied. Okay, now our next one is going to be the output. So this section right here is our output. So with our output, okay, it is the value of the input or position. Okay, so for example, the first position, if we're looking up here at these, okay, the first position has a value of 4. So this right here. Okay. The second position has a value of 8. We see that there. And with this, it's, for our example, we're going to use the same one that we used above for input. The only difference is we're going to be more focused on the output. Okay, so again, here's my table. We had our input, our rule, and our output. So again, our rule was times 4, which means you're taking that input and you're applying whatever the rule is to give you the output. So for example, this output right here, 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 4 is 8, 3 times 4 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16, and 5 times 4 is 20. So all this space right here is that output. All right, now we're going to move on to the vocabulary word that is rule, which is that middle part that we've been talking about, what you're doing to the input to give you that output. So in this one down here, okay, it says the description, description, of the operation that is applied. So it's what we're doing. We're applying it to that input. So for example, the rule was here, times 4. We applied that to the input to give us the output. So it was applied to the input. All right. And so again, I'm going to set up the same one. So we have our input, our rule, and our output. All right. And so again, same thing we were seeing up there, except this time I'm going to go a little deeper into our rule. So for example, I'm going to write it out. I know up here in these two, I just wrote times 4. Now I'm going to show you kind of what is actually happening. So in this first rule right here, we took our input and we applied our times 4, which then gave us our output. Okay, again, so on this next one, we took our input, applied our rule, and it gave us our output. Took our input, applied the rule, gives us our output. Again, applying the rule, because each time that rule was times 4. All right. So with these, input, rule, and output work together. So the input is what you're starting with. You apply the rule to that input, and it will give you that output. All right. Now we're going to talk about some other vocab words. Okay. For example, this one right up here. Okay, and this word was equation. Okay, an equation. And an equation is a number sentence containing an equal sign where one side equals another. Okay. And for our example on this one, it could be any type of equation. So it could be a simple equation, something like 2 plus 3 is 5. That's a simple equation. It could also be maybe a multi-step equation. So for example, 5 is equal to 1 plus 3 plus 0. All right. And an equation also can have things on both sides. And what I mean by that is 3 plus 4. Well, we know that equals 7, but I also know that 3 plus 4 is 7, but 5 plus 2 is also 7. So I know this side equals 7 and this side equals 7, which means 3 plus 4 is equal to 5 plus 2. So make sure in your foldable you write that in. All right, pause if you need to. Our next word is expression. An expression, okay? And an expression is a number sentence. So again, we're talking about that number sentence But the difference between the one we just did is this is a number sentence without an equal sign. So remember, our equation, this one up here, has that equal sign because it's a full equation, right? But this right here, our expression, it's a number sentence without an equal sign. So it's more like kind of just the problem. So for example, it could be something like 4 times 6. Or it could be 30 plus 100 plus 50. Notice I don't have an equal sign on any of these. It could be 10 divided by 2. It could be 124 minus 80. It could be any of those different ones, any of our 4 types of problems. The biggest thing is it does not have an equal sign. It is without an equal sign. Okay. And then our next one, our very, very last one is variable. Okay, so variable, I know you can't see me on this, but this is usually when I like to kind of wiggle my hand. It's the thing that we're trying to figure out. And so with a variable is an unknown number represented by a letter. You see this a lot when we're doing word problems or things like that. So some different examples, for example, is 4 times 6 equals B. I could have also written it as 6 times 4 equals B, right? I could also write it, if I'm thinking about the same kind of fact family, is B divided by 6 is 4. I could write it as B divided by 4 is 6. I could also do this with addition or subtraction. I could say 8 plus 2 equals C, or 2 plus 8 equals C, right? I could also do it as C minus 8 equals 2, C minus 2 equals 8, a bunch of different options, right? I could also even do it in a different way, because I know I showed you this way in that multiplication, right? But I could also do it as 3 times M equals 9, right? I could do it as M times 3 equals 9. Okay, I could do 9 divided by M equals 3, and 9 divided by 3 equals M. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can use this variable. Guys, really a variable is that it's just that unknown number. It's what you're searching for. It's what you're looking for in your answer. Okay, so make sure you have all of this filled in. I know on this one I did a lot of examples, so you do not have to do all of them. Okay, just make sure you have at least one of these sets, maybe these 2 right here. That way you have an addition and subtraction one. Okay, but when you are done with this, go ahead and you will be gluing it in your notebook, and I will post a video or have an example of how I glued it into my notebook up on the board or with the teacher so that y'all can get a good example. Bye, guys.